What is up, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for another key comic flip through. Today's episode, we're going to go through Batman 181. Man, this book is very old. Came out in June of '66. Batman 181 got the original first printing here recently over at Cadets Toys and Comics. Anxious to get inside of this one. First appearance of Poison Ivy. So let's take a peek at the cover real quick. I love this like Peter Pan-esque stylization here. Of course, we have Poison Ivy standing up again in that Peter Pan style, has this shadow that's being cast over here. And we have our Cape Crusaders right here. Double trouble between the dynamic duo. What a great little title right there. Is she the cause? Beware of the Poison Ivy, with of course that little ivy flare over there on the bottom. And of course we have our double page pinup of Batman and Robin, which is included in here, and we're going to take a look at that when we get to that part. But let's break into Batman issue number 181. Let's get into this one right now. So we are introduced with a splash page right here, basically giving us a little synopsis of what we're going to see in the story. We have Batman kind of in a trance right now from Poison Ivy. He's got this spinning animation going right here because he's basically spinning around in his head. He's in love, he's infatuated, and of course we have Robin over here picking up the slack, taking on the henchmen outside in like this farmland area over here, which we're going to explain in the story. So pretty cool, like one-page explanation about where we are going to go with this story. So as we get into this, another interesting panel right here. Apparently they're over in the Gotham City Museum. Bruce Wayne, millionaire sportsman and playboy, and his young ward Dick Grayson attend a sensational pop art show. And so for some reason, they have all these different villains, like the number 1, number 2, and number 3 female villains. They're actually numbered up here. We have the Dragonfly, Silken Spider, and Tiger Moth on display right here. And it's a pretty interesting banter between Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson here, saying, yes, Dick, they are beautiful, but they are also deadly, and you're too young to be drooling over these women. Dick quickly replying, saying, I can dream until I'm old enough to try to catch them, can't I? But then the party's soon interrupted by Poison Ivy coming onto the scene right here, basically saying that she's the number 1 villain, and the only reason why no one's heard of her is because all of her crimes are so perfect that she's never been caught, and no one has ever linked her to the crimes that she's committed. She's almost too good, so she cannot possibly be ranked because no one ever knows that she commits the crime. Bruce Wayne comes up to her pretty quickly saying, hey, if you're so good and everything, why don't you talk to the police? Why don't you prove it? Things like that. And Poison Ivy is quickly also infatuated with Bruce Wayne in this moment right here, saying, for you, handsome, anytime. So she actually goes and gets some attention with the media types over here, getting some pictures, things like that. Before things get too out of hand, she asks if she can kind of retouch up her makeup, which is obviously a big trap. It's a device that actually blows the bulbs in the cameras and explodes a big pop, a big flash, like a flash grenade going off. And she actually protected herself with some kind of tinted contact lenses, Bruce says right here, allowing Poison Ivy to escape while everyone's distracted, while they're being blinded in that scene right there. Speaking of distractions, Bruce Wayne uses this distraction, this big flashbang, to change into his costume, but he's fully not recovered from the flashbang, wandering dangerously close to this elevator being repaired with this open door, slipping through the door, falling seemingly to his death. But he notices, as he's waving his arms around, he can feel the cables. He grabs onto the cables just in time, swinging into the lobby doors, and he makes it safely to the lobby over here. Poison Ivy, recognizing how crafty Batman is right here, she actually paid off some goons in the front door to take care of anybody that comes out of the museum attempting to chase her. He's still recovering from that flashbang, getting beat up initially, but using his keen fighting abilities to sense where the different enemies are, he kind of throws his punches wildly and nails the 2 goons in the face. Then as we progress through this fight right here, more and more goons come up, starting to overpower him a little bit, but Poison Ivy's actually thinking to herself, man, this Batman guy is something else as well. So how do I pick between Batman and Bruce Wayne? They're both so handsome and charming. I got to come up with a plan to get both of these guys in my life, and I did figure out how to do that. So Poison Ivy is just as obsessed with him as Batman is of her, as we're going to find out in these next coming pages. Now we're entering Beware of Poison Ivy Part 2. Dick Grayson actually joins the battle, eventually skipping the abandoned elevator, the repairing elevator shaft, taking the stairs, which seems a little bit more reasonable. And the funny thing is here, this villain actually gets thrown out. He's actually stretching out of the paneling right here, which I thought was pretty funny. A good little stylization choice right there. And Batman, while fighting these goons over here, are basically saying, man, I'm thinking about how cute Poison Ivy was. I'd hate to put such a beautiful doll behind bars. Man, you gotta love and hate some of this writing that was from back then. Dick Grayson quickly telling Batman to take a cold shower. Remember that she's a villain. She needs to be put behind bars. And Batman quickly reminding Dick Grayson here that, hey, don't forget, I'm human too, Robin. I can lose my head like any other fool. You don't have to warn me what would happen if I kiss Poison Ivy. A little bit of foreshadowing going on right there. Poison Ivy going back home, kind of infatuated with Bruce Wayne and Batman, as evidenced by the pictures that she has right here. She also comes up with a plan really quick to get the number 1, number 2, and number 3 female villains to go against each other, take each other out, inviting all 3 of them to like this battle royale situation, faking all these letters from each other to each other, saying like, I'm the number 1, I'm going to knock you off your spot, things like that. So all 3 of them get mad at each other, thinking, yeah, I'll join you in this little battle, but I'm going to show up early so I can set some traps and things like that. So every single one of them has this same idea, and we're going to see that play out in the next coming pages. But not only did the 3 villains up here get the invitation, but Bruce Wayne and Batman also got an invitation, with Poison Ivy suggesting that they battle it out for her affection as well. So they do accept that, and they hop in the Batcopter to go to this place where they're going to be meeting for this big battle. And when they get there, they realize that all these henchmen are already there. Everybody had the exact same idea: show up early, set some traps, all that stuff. So we have Batman and Robin parachuting in from the Batcopter, trying to assess the situation. What's the best plan of attack here? Then, of course, we have our 3 villains over here. They basically have this temporary truce while they see Batman and Robin coming down. They all agree to it that they're going to team up and take out the dynamic duo, and they can get back to their arguments after that. But Batman, being very quick, he instructs Dick to swing the lines, basically turning into a wrecking ball, knocking all these villains down. I think that was a pretty cool idea. Really interesting choice of coloring and art to show them swinging around, hitting all these different guys. Lots of pows and biffs in this panel right here. Then meanwhile, Poison Ivy comes over here presenting the 3 villains with this crown, this gift that they all can try to battle for, basically saying that you're the number 1 criminal in the world. And of course, all 3 of them grab onto this thing, not knowing that they have been tricked by Poison Ivy, because that crown is essentially electrified and they're stuck now to holding this, and they're all screaming right here. And Poison Ivy had some kind of shockproof gloves that she was holding when she was holding the crown. It's a pretty interesting little gag right there. So we have our Cape Crusaders cleaning up the henchmen over here. Poison Ivy in the background saying, man, Bruce didn't even accept my invitation. It would have been awesome to see him, but I'm so thrilled because I get to see Batman in action. So she gets a little bit more of that down here. Then as we progress, we actually see Poison Ivy approaching Batman, and she's actually going in for the kill at this moment, calling it fate that they were meant to meet like this and get together. She comes in here for the kiss, basically setting our Batman into a tailspin. Robin over here taking up the rest of the goons, saying, beware of Poison Ivy. Dick Grayson, being the great detective that he is, notices that she's wearing chloroform-based lipstick, but Batman also has some kind of a filter in his nose or something like that, and so he wasn't completely affected, but mostly. So it's going to take a few minutes for Batman to recover from that. After she realizes that her plan kind of failed right there, she goes on the escape, climbing up the wall like Ivy. According to Dick Grayson here, she's climbing straight up the wall like she was Ivy. We got to stop her. Poison Ivy quickly reminding Dick Grayson that Batman's under my spell. I've clipped his wings. But shortly coming out of that spell right here, Batman has enough energy to throw a batarang up there, hitting Poison Ivy, knocking her down just in time for him to catch. And then she was quickly brought back to the police station. I warn you, Batman, once you get caught by Poison Ivy, you'll never get rid of it. I'm not worried about getting out of here. You will help me. Just wait and see. So Poison Ivy is counting on the fact that she's basically planted the seeds. She's planted her roots in Batman's mind. He's going to come around eventually, get her out of there. It's just a matter of time, and we'll see what happens then. The story actually cuts there with another backstory in this issue. We get this little excerpt right here that says, thus ending one of Batman's most astonishing battles against villainy. Did he really win? Once caught, Poison Ivy does break out again and again. Will Batman become a victim to the charms of the inescapable, delightful, but dangerous Poison Ivy? You haven't long to find out. Only till the next issue of Batman. So that is all we really get to see of Poison Ivy. I'm going to show you the next couple of pages just because I know so many people like the pinup in here as well. I wish it would have featured Poison Ivy, but we do get the dynamic duo right here. It is detached from the main spine, but that's okay. It is right here. The rest of this comic is actually another story, a backstory that which does not involve Poison Ivy, so we're not going to necessarily get into that. So Overall, I'd say it's actually a pretty good issue. The cover is extremely iconic, featuring her in full length right here. Very, very easily recognizable. Beautiful, beautiful cover. I love her costume design. Again, it has that Peter Pan kind of flair to it. And then, of course, the story itself was mostly featuring her, how crafty she is, the different types of traps that she uses. She uses this flashbang thing to blow up all the cameras. Of course, she starts getting into the minds, hearts, and souls of all the men that have witnessed her over here. So she's definitely got the charm over there as well. She's very resourceful. She's got a lot of money. She's paying off some henchmen, setting up some plans, things like that, just to get people off of her back. She's very cunning, very deceiving, setting up this trap for all these other women right here that are kind of in her way in the rankings of all the villains out there. And of course, she's obsessed with Bruce Wayne and Batman. She's also crafty enough to capture all three of our female villains right here with this electrified crown, keeping them indisposed as she goes over to Batman for the kill, trying to team up with him to be the best king and queen royal couple of crime ever. And of course, she uses some of her classic poison tricks to get into the hearts and minds of men over here as well, counting on the fact that Batman will come back eventually for her because he is going to be obsessed with her going forward. So very, very cool issue. I did enjoy that. I wish it was a full thing, wish it was a full comic, but we got what we got, and I think it was pretty well handled. Let me know down below what you guys think of this first appearance of Poison Ivy. And while you're down there, make sure to click that like button, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and check out that join button as well. As always, I really appreciate you watching the video. I'll see you all down below in the comments.